Let me start straight away by asking you to react to the kind of furor your use of a 1970s phrase, the Hindu rate of growth, caused. You are obviously using a colloquialism, which has been in practice in a kind of shorthand sort of way to talk about a slow rate of growth. And there was a lot of anger about the choice of words. Were you surprised by the kind of anger that evoked?
There's a lot of silliness in public debate today, and you have to overlook the noise that is generated. The key issue, really, that people are trying to deflect from is that our growth rate has been slow. I mean, if you look at the growth rate from the pre pandemic 2019 uh, uh, to today, 2023, and take the government's official figures, we're growing at below 3.5%, which, if you recall, the 3.5% is what Raj Krishna famously termed that rate of growth, which has created so much controversy. So we're really, the concern is that our growth rate has slowed considerably. If you look at, the G20 countries, look at the pre-pandemic rate of growth for the all of the G20 countries, and then look at their growth during the pandemic and see how much have they underperformed the pre-pandemic rate of growth. I'm taking 5-year averages pre-pandemic, and you will see India is at the bottom. So if you look at the past, we don't look good. Now, of course, the future is uncertain. We don't know what will happen in the future. I very much hope India reaches those growth rates that people are talking about, 6, 7, 8, pick a number. You have that number. Some forecasting agency is saying we'll grow at that number. The reality is we have grown slowly and we have slowed this year. We are slowing in the third quarter, we grew by 4.4%. That is the official number. And the RBI predicts we'll grow slower in the last quarter at 4.2%. Now, these are respectable agencies, and I would wish that we would grow much faster. I see some light. For example, our services exports has been growing
Hmm.
tremendously fast. And I think I've been saying for some time that we should think about how we encourage service exports rather than putting all our eggs in the manufacturing basket. So I'm all for stronger growth in India, but I think we should also look at the numbers. And a lot of controversy is being generated by just plain silliness.
So you're not very bothered by the fact that your use of the phrase the Hindu rate of growth was received negatively by some people. You're saying let's concentrate on the actual question. That being said, do you believe that the sort of the words themselves or the phraseology itself has become somewhat redundant and outdated? I'll come to the substance of what you're trying to say, but just to get the debate around the phrase out of the way.
Look, the phrase was generated by a respectable economist who was trying to find a way of characterizing the pre-liberalization growth rate that we had settled down on. Now, you can create whatever controversy you want around the word Hindu. I am a Hindu. I think that there is a lot of good that is associated with the word, but this is a technical term. Don't make a mountain out of a molehill. And that shows the paucity of the debating points of those critics. They have they sort of try and deflect the discussion to something which is irrelevant rather than focusing on the issue, which is our growth rate has slowed. And even within that growth rate, you have people talking, oh, this is about quarterly growth rates. No, this is about the fact that over the last 4 years, we have underperformed our previous growth rates by significant amounts. Let's take a look closely at why and ask whether the future will be much better. I hope it is much better. I would wish it to be much better, but we need to do work for that. We can't just, thump our chest and say we will be, growing so fast.
So let me, in fact, that was going to be my follow-up question. That beyond the phrase itself, the argument made against your concerns was that you had zeroed in on one quarter. That when you spoke about growth slowing down to 4.4, you were really talking about the third quarter. When you look at the projections that are coming in, whether from the RBI, the S&P, or any other agency, it's all pegging the Indian growth story at somewhere between 6 and 7%.
Yeah.
Is that terrible?
It's not terrible. It's good if we reach it. It's all hope and expectation. If you look at sensible economists, they will look at the fact that over the last 4 years, we have grown below 3.5 and say, we have to do a lot more to grow faster. We've done the pandemic rebound. So, some of that spectacular growth rate that we had was after spectacular downfalls in growth. So, you have to look at both together. And what has been happening more recently is we've had some of the rebound. A lot of growth came from services in this current fiscal year, but now what is happening is we are seeing a slowing. We are seeing a slowing in manufacturing, and services we would hope would continue to pick up more strongly. But it is a hope. And the question is, what does the future look like? I mean, people are extrapolating. I think the sensible economists, people like J.P. Morgan, that I pay attention to, are nowhere near the 7 and 8% that people are talking about. They're very worried about downside risk, not just from within India, but from outside India.
Hmm. So the Standard and Poor's sort of forecast that's come in just today that keeps the 6% unchanged for fiscal 24 and 6.9 for the year after, you're not in agreement with that.
No, I'm saying there's a lot of uncertainty. I would want us to not take growth rates for granted. I used to run the world's premier forecasting organization, which was the IMF's Economic Research
Yeah.
Department. And I know how these forecasts are made. Uh, Sometimes they make astrology look respectable. So I think that we have to be a little careful taking all this into account. I mean, there was, when I talked about these growth rates, there was a lot of thumping on the table. We will prove him wrong with this analysis and that analysis, and that's all bogus. A lot of this analysis is not worth the paper it's written on. We're all sort of putting our finger in the air and falling. I mean, how do we know how the Western world is going to slow down? What effect will that have? What happens if oil prices take a hike rather than fall
Hmm.
because there is further developments in the war?
Yeah.
The point is, there's a lot of uncertainty. We have to do the best. I would hope for the best, and this is I mean, I don't want to downplay India. I think we there are lots of very bright sort of aspects of the Indian growth story, but we should not deny the fact that we have grown very slowly over the last so many years and we have underperformed our potential.